All right, so we have already a Spring Boot Java application. Let's add a JPA to the to our project. So to add JPA to our project, we'll need to do a couple things. First, we'll need to configure our project to download the JPA library. So let's do that. So in the POM file of your Java application, if you go to the POM, right, we're going to add JPA as a dependency to this project. So we'll paste it here. So what that will do is we'll download the JPA library. It's going to put it in your Maven repository, right, so that we can compile against that. Right? Next, we're going to download a MySQL. Oops. Let's copy that. A MySQL library called MySQL Connector Java. So this is going to be the driver that allows Java applications to create a connection, a live connection to a database. Okay, all right. So there we go. So this is our low-level driver that connects to the database, whereas this is our high-level. Where's JPA? Did I just overwrite it? I think I did. Let me copy that again. JPA is going to be our high-level library that's going to allow us to talk to a database using objects. There we go. All right, we got that. The other thing that we need to configure is to let our project know where is the database located. All right, to do that, we're going to edit the file application.properties, and we're going to paste this content. All right, so let's copy that, and let's head over to application.properties. Under resources, there we go. We're going to paste that in there. And this database, right? Property files are name value pairs, right? That are used on the left-hand side. You have these keys. These keys are standard keys that configure different things for your server. Let's fix this a little bit. The first configuration here is telling the infrastructure, where is the database? Where can that be located? What's the IP address or the domain name where your server is running? For me, it's running localhost on my machine, or 127.1.1, right? When you deploy this in Heroku, then Heroku will give you a URL, right, and tell you what the IP address of your database server where it's running. Also, the database, we just called it, I believe we called it cs4550 _ sp20. So that's this over here. So it's cs4550 _ sp20. Also, I believe I've already created a username. Let me see. If we go to management users, let's see what do we have. Okay, we have a 4550 user, so let's use that. I believe I used the same password. I don't quite remember. I think it was the username and password. I used the same thing. A couple other things here. We are telling the JPA, notice that all the other configurations all start with JPA, and we're configuring saying that to use the, we're turning on the data definition language. We're saying, hey JPA, you are free to define the data in the database, right? So meaning, feel free to create tables, choose the data types for us, the names of the fields, rename them as needed. Make any changes that you need. Right? Also, we're turning on debugging, show SQL. We can see what the actual SQL that's going back and forth between us and the database Java, and we can see the SQL that Java is generating for us. It's interesting to look at. It's also very informative, and also for debugging purposes, it's great. You can see, if you agree what Java is generating for you. And you can actually copy it and maybe try it out yourself in your relational database. A couple of things that we're going to configure here. Let's copy this. Let's paste that in here. Here we're configuring the JPA to use a naming strategy, right? So that it will use proper naming based on how the naming conventions that SQL uses, right? In Java, we use, for instance, the way we name fields, we use camel casing, right? Where we capitalize the first letter of each word, right? And that's fine because in Java we are case sensitive, but in SQL it's case insensitive. right? So making something capitalized means nothing. So the naming convention in SQL is to use instead underscores, between words. So this configuration, turns on that mechanism, right? That you should use this strategy of naming things. Also, we are turning on a particular dialect of SQL. There's many types of dialects. Different vendors have different versions of SQL. They add their own little quirks. So we're choosing the MySQL 5 dialect. Also, we are turning on several other things that are useful for debugging. To use white spaces. Otherwise, everything will be printed in a single line. So that we can read it easily as it prints out the console to the console. Now, usually these debugging tools, these are good for development purposes, but in a production environment, you typically would turn this off, right? Otherwise, it would just litter your log files, just really, really long comments that you won't need in production. Also, in the DDL auto, there are several options here. The create one tells JPA to always create the schema for you from scratch, right? If there's a table that is called the same way that was already there, it'll just blow it away and just recreate the table from scratch, which is fine when you're just futzing around and you're playing around and you're learning, right? But once your schema has stabilized and you're ready to go production and whatnot, you would turn that off. You don't want that. But what it'll do is it'll drop your table. So if you have data in there, you lose that data, right? So remind me, if I put create, remind me, I don't want to blow some of my data that I might already have there, okay? None just turns it off. It says, no, don't do anything. Don't generate any schema for me. Don't rename anything. Don't touch anything, right? And that's important if your database is a legacy database that's been around for decades. Usually you won't even have permission to do this, right? But even if you would have, you would turn it off because it's a database that's it's been in use for quite a while. You should not be modifying anything, okay? So none would be appropriate. We're going to be using update. Update says I'm going to look at the deltas as you modify, maybe add a new field, you rename a field, you maybe change the data type, and it will do its best to change or alter the database, to match whatever changes I might have done at the object level, right? So sometimes it's not successful. Sometimes it can't do the changes. The changes might be a little bit too aggressive, and you'll just have to start all over. Just throw away the table and just it'll recreate it from scratch. All right. So update will create if it's not already there. If a table is already there, it'll try to alter it and modify it. Make sense? Okay. All right. So let's go on and actually try to do this.